All right, it's Mark here, your firefighter, realtor, and out-of-state investor. I got a special guest on today, Joel F.I.R.E from Strive for 25. He's in the mortgage industry and he's a real estate investor. So, Joel, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, Mark, thanks for having me on. I'm just excited to be here and just enjoyed our talks offline, talking about real estate. But yeah, I've been in the mortgage industry since 2006 when I got out of college. A real estate investor along the way, kind of have a unique journey. I didn't know what I was doing when I started. So I'd love to talk about that a little bit more. And then I started this Strive for 25 platform. I mean, a while ago, but pretty much this year is when I kind of took it to another level with a podcast and Instagram and YouTube and all that stuff. So just trying to be able to take my knowledge and see if I can help a couple people out there, accelerate the process of building wealth.
Give me a little background. Where does Strive for 25 come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's two parts to that answer. So the first thing, the 25, that's the biggest piece of the puzzle that people ask about, the 25. Essentially, this kind of came in with, hey, if somebody can build their life and restructure their life to be able to save 25% of their income, which again, that's a massive number, and it takes time to get there. But if somebody can do that, get to that goal, then you're going to have the ability to save money and then have options and choices of how you want to invest your dollars. And then this kind of started back in 2017. So I was working on the bank side of things, and a lot of my clientele is in different parts of the country, a lot of DC, Virginia, Maryland, Carolinas, Florida, Texas, Midwest, et cetera. And so it's all built on relationship, connections, network, people introductions, things like that. And I started kind of taking my real estate journey to the next level in 2017 as I purchased a couple multifamilies, purchased a commercial building, rehabbed it. And then we went from the banking side of things to F.I.R.E Independent Mortgage Company. Started a branch here in St. Louis. F.I.R.E hadn't been in St. Louis before, but it's a very big company. There's F.I.R.E branches in many different markets, and it's one of the most entrepreneurial companies that I ever came across. And in that year, they said, "Hey, you know what? Like, you guys are here, you're leasing space, but the other branch managers, what they do is they go purchase, commercial buildings or whatever, and then they basically lease back to their LLC and have their mortgage branch in a property that they own." And so that's just one example. And so just me kind of taking my real estate journey to the next level that year and seeing things happen and my income increasing and, other properties that I had purchased on the way starting to be able to grow in value. I started thinking to myself, what would I have told myself 10 years ago, in my early 20s? And it's like, I got into the mortgage industry in 2006. I think I was 23 at the time. And I didn't know what I was doing. When I got the job, I didn't know what a mortgage was, first off, but that's a whole different story. So along the way, I started doing okay in sales, learning about the industry, making some decent money, but I was young and single and living in my parents' house at that time. So I had cash flow. I had cash coming in. I didn't have a car payment because I was already paid off. Didn't have rent, but I wasn't really saving money. And I look back on it, it's like, if someone would have told me, dude, go have fun, go meet your friends, go meet, somebody you want to, potentially you want to date a girl out there. But just take 10% of your income and just put it into savings. Just make it easy. Don't think about it. Automate that process from your paycheck into your savings and just don't touch it. Just live off of what's left. Like that type of mindset is something that I think is important. But then the question is, well, shoot, I almost cussed there. So I
That's
apologize.
right. Hey, I hear other people's cuss.
Then the question is, well, am my 23-year-old self or 25-year-old self, would I even have listened? That's a different conversation. So that's just a little bit of the origin story of Strive 25. So last thing, 2017 is kind of when this whole thing started. Mike Swale, my business partner in the mortgage branch, he's the one who coined the term Strive for 25. There's a little bit of rhyming there. So that was intentional. But along the way, kind of here and there, did some seminars, used some content, talked to a lot of people about this stuff, but didn't really formalize anything officially until 2022.
That's awesome. I mean, same here. I mean, I don't know if I would have listened to when I was a lot younger. It seems so simple now, But, looking back on it, it was a challenge. Not everybody is headed down that same path, so it's like your friends are doing certain things, and it's a little bit hard. It seems simple now, but yeah, like you're saying, I mean, would you actually have listened back then? But yeah, I mean, that's so tell us a little bit about what your, I guess, your real estate investment portfolio side looks like.
Yeah. So kind of like the ending journey, like right here, this snapshot of time right now. I've got a couple single family rentals, a couple multifamily rentals here in St. Louis that I have on my own. Um, I've got a couple of commercial buildings and mixed use properties that I have with my partner. I've got a short term rental in Destin, Florida that I acquired in 2021. That's done really well. I got lucky on that one because I got it like as 20 was turning into 21. Got under contract in January at a pretty attractive price before kind of the real estate boom kicked into a second gear. And then in this past year in 2022, some other things happened, and was able to kind of get my feet wet into a land development project. And so we're going to be building some houses in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, in that same area. So that's a quick kind of rundown of what I have going on. If you ask me how many doors I have to think about it. 15 doors, 17 doors. I honestly don't remember.
That's a good sized portfolio. So, I mean, I think we talked and we kind of started off the same way, but what would be your, not your, I guess, your condo that you started with, like what would be your first investment property that you got into, or how would you transition to an
Yeah.
investment property?
So I was talking to somebody else about house hacking. I never really got into house hacking. That wasn't something that I did. And I kind of regret it looking back. But like at the end of the day, there's so much more information and data out today than there was 10, 12 years ago in terms of social media and all that stuff. So like I said, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody in my family, in my friend circle. I was just, I'm blue collar family, just worked hard, hustled, and whatever. So I bought my condo in 2009, used the $8,000 credit from the recession that was out that year. And then from that point in 2013, I, had been with Citibank, got into a different kind of outside sales world, and was at Fifth Third Bank in 2012 and 2013, and kind of took my mortgage career into a different level. And I was able to just make more money and save more money. And that year I purchased a home, a single family house in 2013, and then turned the condo into a rental. It's in a good area. Cash flow is okay, but just the demand for rent in that area, it's very centrally located in St. Louis. And so it was a safe investment. And that kind of goes back to why I purchased that home in that area that I did. And it's something I always advise people. And this kind of dovetails into the stair step method, which I'll explain more in a second. But in my world, we're in a commission job. Like I don't know what my paycheck's going to be 2 months down the road, because we basically earn money based on what we close. And not everybody is okay with that. Not everybody can handle that stress. That's just something that I'm wired for. I like that competitiveness. So that's okay with me. I'm good with that. And so, but still, like it's very, there's still, risk. And I had this fear inside of me that prevented me from really wanting to take too many risks in terms of purchasing real estate in that time. So, especially coming out of the recession. So in 2009, I said, you know what, like if anything happens to my job and I don't make any money, I have to kind of go to the worst case scenario and rent it out. I know in this area, like I will have no problems renting it out. And it was new construction condo as well. So it was a good area. So that was very intentional. But I didn't have any visions of turning into rental intentionally. That just never really crossed my mind. And along the way, some books that I've read, Rich Dad Poor Dad, being a big one that hit me, but didn't hit me the same way that it does years later when I've reread it, just based on experiences changing. And so 2013 hits, turn into rental, cool, okay. And then 2014, my whole life changed because the company that I was at, the mortgage market changed as well, and some of the things that were going on, I had to change companies. And when I changed companies, I had a non-compete. So I couldn't really connect to my old database of clients and network and try to find more opportunities. And in 2012 and 2013, interest rates, and this is, we did a lot of VA loans in different markets. We had a really good specialty at that time doing VA loans. So the floor of interest rates at that time was 3.25%. So we had a lot of people that we started in the 4.5 range, got them down to 3.75, and then 3.25. And so what we were doing in those time frame, and how I was able to kind of spread my name just kind of organically from 1,000 miles away, because I'm in St. Louis talking to clients in Northern Virginia, Virginia Beach, Wilmington, North Carolina, different parts of Florida, et cetera, is that, when you purchase a VA loan, a home using a VA loan, first off, you start out with negative equity. So let's just take a very simple example: $100,000. So you buy a home for $100,000. If it's your first time usage of VA, back in those days, I think the funding fee was 2.1%. So zero down. Now you add on $2,010 of financing the funding fee onto the loan. So your purchase price was $100,000. Now you owe $102,000 and change. So technically you're starting at a negative equity position. So that's just one baseline. And so in that Northern Virginia market, for example, if you want a 1,200 square foot townhouse, right outside DC, you're talking 500,000, 600,000 easy, even in that time frame 10 years ago.
Wow.
And so if I'm at 4% on an interest rate on a $600,000 VA loan, and I'm active duty, so I'm going to have a VA funding fee if I do a refinance. I'm going to have other fees if I do a refinance, and that career military type of personnel, they're going to be relocating every 3 to 5 years, somewhere in that time frame. So if I have a VA loan in Virginia and I'm going to relocate to another state, let's just call it North Carolina or Florida, then I'm going to have a choice. Do I rent or do I purchase a home? Well, if I've got a VA loan outstanding, my ability to use a VA loan with no money down is going to be restricted in some way. It may not even be possible at all. So if somebody is, hey, you know what, I might be relocating in a couple of years and I'm at 4%. I'm not really sure if I'm going to keep this property long-term, short-term. I don't really know. So if rates are at 3.5% and a loan officer is talking to them about interest rates, being lower, and try to lower your payment, because going from 4% to 3.5%, that's a pretty decent chunk of change in terms of reduction in payment. A couple $100, $300. I forget the numbers off the top of my head. But in that time frame, which is very different than where rates are today, how the rates work, we were able to get to somebody, instead of going to 3.5% with, 0.5% VA funding fee, you've got title fees and transfer taxes that are going to be due in Virginia. So title and transfer could be $4,000 easy. Your VA funding fee is $3,000, plus some other fees, lender fees, et cetera. So it's easy to get to $10,000 in total actual fees to do a refinance. And so if you're saving $300 a month and you're not going to be there for maybe 2 or 3 years or uncertain, your break-even period is not going to be there. And so, but there were a lot of people that were kind of being taken advantage of it. And so this kind of network is like, hey, you know what? Somebody can offer me 3.25 with all these fees. And I was like, you know what? Like, if you're only going to be there for 2 years, like, another scenario that could make sense. So we go through it. It's like, okay, we're going to go to 3.75%. Maybe you save $150 on your payment. But this rate at 3.75 is the sweet spot on the rate sheet. I have a lender credit available. Instead of going to 3.5% with no points, 3.75% is the opposite of paying points. You're getting a negative points. Negative points means a credit towards closing cost. So we could cover somebody's closing cost. And then in certain situations, we had more credits to be able to cover other things like escrows. So we close on a loan and we collect escrow money for the new escrow account for the new loan. The old escrow money from the previous lender then gets them back to that borrower within about 30 days. So like, if I cover all their escrow money and all their fees on the new loan, they are just barely rolling anything into the loan, and they get the escrow money back from the old loan. It's money coming out of thin air, so to speak. Because if the choice is, hey, don't do anything or do this solution, the 3.75 and getting money back is a better solution because you're not really incurring any negative. So,
Yeah.
Fannie and Freddie and Ginnie may not like that I'm talking about this, because there's rules out there right now about churning. You have to hit certain type of criteria of lowering the payment and break even, and we were covering fees in that time, so it doesn't really apply. But that scenario I think is important for several reasons. One, that's one of the reasons how I was able to build a network and trust with a lot of people from 1,000 miles away, because we were doing things that nobody else was doing at that time. And then two, we're going to talk about real estate on this call, and understanding how lending works is so important to be able to, one, get in the game, and then two, scale.
Exactly. That's why I always talk about how having a great lender or working with a great lender is super, super important. And that, like, my story is kind of that totally opened up the doors for me, finding this whole other lending world out there that offers different solutions, different products. So anyone out there, looking to get started or investing, reach out to Joel, see if he can help you, but find a good lender that you're comfortable working with, because there's a big difference in lenders out there, and some are not going to present you probably all the best options available to you. But yeah, like I said, there's a amazing lending world out there. But probably what everybody does want to know is, and with your crystal ball, where do you see mortgage rates being maybe at the end of 2023? Do you have some sort of idea, or what are you forecasting, you think?
That's a really important question. I say it's important because this has been a rough go in the last 6 months in our industry, in the mortgage industry, and the commercial lending industry, commercial real estate. The level of activity in terms of home sales has come to a screeching halt. It's been brutal. And Wells Fargo just exited the mortgage industry. Essentially, they're going to stop doing mortgages and stop servicing loans. And there's probably a lot of other reasons that go into that from a different perspective that I won't go into. But frankly, I'm surprised that there haven't been more companies laying off more people and more people, companies getting out of the business. So when you back up a step, right, where are things going to go? We also have to talk about, well, how do we get there? Because how we got there also kind of creates this narrative of how this is potentially going to play out as we get through 2023. And October, and this is off of the top of my head, so I could butcher this. So we're in the beginning of 2023, right? 2022 is when we saw interest rates literally go from December, we were locking loans in the low threes, to, I guess, March in the fours, and then June hits and we were in the mid sixes. Like, to go for rates to double in 5 months, 6 months is just unheard of. Not since 1981 has that happened. And so that rapid pace of rate increases, not only did it crunch buyers out of the market from being able to afford houses, because still in that time frame in April and May and getting into June, prices were still going up. It was still very competitive. Sellers are not offering any type of concessions or credits. So you were still having to put offers over asking price to be able to have a chance to win. So very competitive. So you've got interest rates that are going up, right? If I issue a pre-approval on a Tuesday at 5.75%, and then 7 days later we're at 6.5%, well, shoot, they're not. If you're in the middle of negotiating the contract price, addendums going back and forth, and then a week goes by and the rates are up by a full percent, you may not even qualify for that loan. So that was the environment that they were in that May and June timeframe. So not only did it squeeze buyers out of the market from being able to actually qualify or compete for offers, the level of confidence in June just, like, it went to a screeching halt. It just fell off a cliff. The number of applications that we had in July just went from, like, let's just talk about 10 to 2, like a 80% drop off. So the level of confidence just dropped. And so that time frame is so interesting, because I actually put something out on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Joel Farrell Real. And I was in the middle of posting Instagram Reel series on this. I got halfway through it and didn't finish it, talking about interest rates and what I think is going to happen. And so in June of 2022, CPI hit over 9%. And so when you look at the way CPI is calculated, it's calculated on a 12-month rolling average. So each month, they're going to take that data point, and then they're going to basically add it into the average, and then they get your full CPI index rating. Now, and we were talking about this the other day about the full index versus the core. And so I'm just talking about the raw full index. And June, that reading was 1.3%. In May was 1.2. In April, I think it was 0.9. And in March, I think it was like actually higher than that, than what April was. So we had this ramping up of inflation, which at the time, we were all feeling the brunt of it. Prices are continuing to go up. But when that July reading came out in August, that was the first time that we saw inflation, instead of going up, that the full index reading peaked at 9 whatever percent and then came down that next month. I think it was like 8.7 or whatever. But what nobody talked about, or what nobody that I saw talk about or headlined enough, is that we were just gradually going up in the index each month. But June was 1.3 and the July reading was 0. Like, just massive drop off of inflation. And that's just very interesting from a raw perspective. How do you see prices that are going up rapidly all of a sudden just drop off a cliff? Like the Federal Reserve, with them hiking rates, what they were doing was working. And at that point in time, looking back, I was like, holy smokes, like it actually happened, pretty quickly, because in the next few readings after that, we saw 0.2, 0.4, 0.3. And then if you look at a chart, which is something I posted or will post on Instagram or Twitter, the December reading was negative 0.1. And so when you kind of play this out, and we're in January right now, and if these inflation readings are going to stay, if they stay in this kind of 0.1 to 0.4 range, when we hit April, the March and February readings will fall off. And those readings were high, 0.7, 0.9, whatever, 1 point, whatever, I forget the numbers. And so then when you do the math on the full aggregate of an average, it's possible that we could be seeing a CPI reading in the 4s, upper 4s, 5s, I don't know, somewhere in that range, which is a good sign for the markets that, hey, price stability, which is the goal of the Fed, to be able to achieve price stability and also maintain good employment or good healthy unemployment. But price stability is really important to be able to maintain confidence in the U.S. dollar, the U.S. Debt, economy, all that across the globe. That's the reason why they've stuck so hard on maintaining these rate hikes, is to be able to maintain price stability. That's what they're trying to accomplish. And when April hits, CPI will probably drop into the 4s. And then this ramping up that I was talking about from May into June, when July hits, those readings will fall off too. And when you do the math, if it does stay in this kind of narrow range under 1%, we could be seeing CPI hit 3%, maybe even upper 2s. I don't know. So the reason that's important is, one, you're going to see confidence in the markets. You're going to see the Fed have a choice to make. Do they let this play out a little longer? And because if inflation is coming down, that could be a signal for the Fed to be able to maybe stay status quo on their Fed funds rate and the prime rate, or maybe even potentially, pull back on the rate hikes. So that's an important thing for interest rates, because, obviously directly, mortgage rates are indirectly tied to what the Fed does. Another thing too that we saw last year, and this is the 10-year Treasury. So the 10-year Treasury, right now, I think it's, I just posted about this morning. I think in November, it hit 4.2%, something like that. Which we haven't seen those levels since 2008. And that's part of the reason why I think you saw a lot of headlines about, comparisons to the Great Recession in 08. But anyway, so we've seen it come back down to, like, literally today, it hit like 3.38%, which is a good level. So 10-year Treasury has an indirect correlation on mortgage rates. And this is something that I learned this year. I had no idea on it. And Barry Habib is the owner of MBS Highway. MBS Highway is a tool that a lot of people in our industry, in the mortgage industry, use to be able to look at the charts for mortgage-backed securities. And which is basically, hold on one second. The 10-year Treasury is correlated to mortgage rates, but it's not directly correlated. Okay. The mortgage-backed security that's being sold and bought on the secondary markets, that is literally the tool that is going to tell us which way rates are going to go. So the 10-year Treasury, and this is something that I learned from Barry Habib in some of his presentations that he does. The typical spread historically between the 10-year treasury and mortgage rates has been about 2%.
Yeah.
The 10-year treasury is at 10% in the 80s. Mortgage rates are at 12%, and it just kind of lockstep up and down, even through recessions. But this year, because rates went up so fast and so quickly, that spread widened about 3%. And so, why did that happen? Because with rates going up so fast, the market was pricing in refinance risk. That if somebody is at a 7% mortgage rate and we think that rates are going to go down next year, 12 months from now or whenever, then how long is that mortgage going to be out there in terms of being collecting interest on, in terms of the coupon holders holding that security on the secondary market? And so they're building in this extra premium. And so that's actually narrowing down closer to what we want to see it for 2%. So two things that affect mortgage rates: inflation and this spread between the 10-year and mortgage rates. So that's kind of going in the right direction. So sorry to make that a long story, but I think it's important for the everyday person to hear this stuff. You may not remember everything, but to be able to hear it, to know that there's this stuff that has logical components and consequences that directs these things. And so, all the headlines have been saying, I think in the last 4 or 5 months, hey, we think rates are going to go down. And so some of the Barry Habib is one, and others are projecting for probably rates at some point this year to hit into the lower fives, maybe even the upper fours at some point. And right now we're in around 6%, which is very, very, very interesting, because I was just talking to a client, I guess 2 days ago, and we had them pre-approved at 6.75%. And now we're talking about getting to 5.75% with paying a point, and their payment's going to be a couple $100 lower than when we started. So like it's having a good effect, I think, for activity in the market. So, so sorry to make that a very long-winded story, but that's what I think's going to happen with rates. So
no, that's all. I mean, that, like I said, this is a whole world that a lot of people aren't in, and they just kind of following all the media that's talking about doom and gloom, and they're not really looking at the actual data points. And definitely the Fed is winning. Their rate hikes are controlling inflation and stabilizing the market. So it is a good sign. And I'm not sure if I'm 100% accurate on this, and this is something I kind of just learned recently, but is the mortgage rates and the 10-year treasury kind of correlated because of most people don't hold their mortgages for more than 10 years, like they refinance, and that's why they use the 10-year treasury as kind of the correlation with mortgage rates as compared to like longer treasury bills and whatnot?
I don't know the exact answer on that, but I think you're on the right track there, just from a guesstimate standpoint. Kind of two sides of that equation. You've got the Fed funds rate, which is your interbanking rate overnight, right? And then your prime rate that you're going to get on credit cards or HELOCs. And so when the Federal Reserve did their last rate hike in December of 0.75%, I think prime now is at 7.5%. I forget what it is. Mortgage rates that week actually stabilized and actually went down for a couple of days. So you don't have that direct correlation between what the Fed does day to day versus mortgage rates. But that 10-year treasury, that's kind of like your rule of thumb, kind of that middle term, maturity. So I get, the old days, your average mortgage length was about 7 years. So when I go backwards 10 years into like 2010, 12, your average mature time outstanding for a mortgage was probably around 7 years based on that data. But as rates have come down from 2010 into this time frame, we've seen that shrink to probably 3 years, if not on average, if not lower. Now, at this point, I have no idea. So I think you're on the right track there. But that's
when I figure out about, maybe I'll give credit to where credit's due, but I remember someone talking about that on one of their channels, and I was like, oh, that's why they always talk about the 10-year treasury, but they never relate it to really like a longer treasury bill. But that like I said, like you said, that was a long answer, but it was a super helpful and useful information that a lot of people should start looking into, especially if they're in the real estate market or mortgage side. But what you also did mention is your Twitter, your Instagram handle. And as like me, I'm trying to get this growing and started, and I think you are also doing that. But kind of tell me kind of how's that going for you right now and where people can kind of find you on those platforms.
Yeah, I'm gonna do two things with this. I'm gonna answer the question, and I'm gonna bring it back to a question I didn't answer fully with the 2014 scenario, changing companies, because it does kind of tie in together a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
In a very indirect way. But my Twitter handle, I'm just getting started. I have like 380 followers. I don't know. But I love Twitter.
Yeah.
There's so many great content creators out there that just pushing out amazing information at whatever industry. If you want to learn to get better at something, Twitter is a great resource. And so my Twitter handle is Joel Farrell Real. So boom, that's easy. And I can talk more about Twitter in a second of why I think it's a very important tool for the future of social media. Two, Instagram, the Strive for 25 platform is very simple. It's Strive for 25 _. That channel I started on July 12th of 2022. And I posted a reel every single day. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I started and I've been going, and I think I'm at 950 followers right now. I'm just doing, learning as I go. And I'll get back to more about the why there. YouTube, Strive for 25, the podcast on all the, regular channels, Apple, Spotify, Strive for 25 as well. I do have a personal Instagram channel. What is it called? Jomifa 8301. Jomifa.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that.
If you search Joel Farrell, it'll pop up. And that's going to be more of my kind of industry mortgage related stuff will be on that channel.
It's not league strikeout leader or record holder or we can talk about that later.
Not yet. Someday maybe. That's so, yeah. We were talking about our baseball triumphs back in the old days and whatnot. But that's a whole nother story. So, the way that I'm going to relate this back to that 2014 story is, this 2022 year was a very, very hard year in our industry. Like I said, I'm surprised more companies aren't getting out. I'm surprised I'm not seeing more things pop up on LinkedIn or Facebook. Hey, I just started a new job at so-and-so company, and their track record was previously in the mortgage industry. The middle of the year, we just saw the volume of an activity really fall off a cliff. And in I guess April, we closed on this land deal in Florida. And I knew what was going on in the industry. I knew rates were going to be going up. I knew inflation was going to be hard to control. And, some of the reason why I was doing these things, the land thing, one, there's a huge barrier to entry into building homes. So you have to get financing, you have to get experience. You have to have experience to get financing to be able to do new construction, to build a home or even a development. And so that's catch 22. If you can't get a loan, well, how do you get experience? And so we were able to tackle that with the group that I have going. But that's also the reason why it was so important, I think, for our group is, we all are in real estate in some way, shape or form, but it was another kind of lane of industry that got us into a different thing, almost like I should know this word, where you take the basket of stocks and you spread out the risk. Oh my goodness, I'm blanking on it. Instead of buying one or two stocks, diversification.
Yeah.
So it was another diversification kind of method to be able to have a couple different lanes of different industries to be able to do. And plus, that the Florida market is booming. Two, there's a shortage of inventory. So that was one of the fuels of why I thought it was important. Two, the social media thing, I saw the writing on the wall that like, hey, I need to be able to build a better surface area of a marketing platform to be able to potentially generate leads, but also add value and educate. The education part was something that was very important for me. And the pain that I was feeling, or that I knew that I would be feeling in the industry when things got very slow, because I started the channel on July 12th, right? And June had just happened with rates hitting 6.5, but it was something I was already working on for a while. And I just saw the writing on the wall. This is going to be something that was very, very important to do. I just decided on one day I was going to just do it. I bought a course from F.I.R.E, who's a realtor in the DC, Maryland market. He's really built a good following. I think he's at like 50,000 followers now, but he really kind of built it from scratch and was able to build this following and a lead generation tool with social media. So I think the last couple of years, he's closed like $22 million of business. And after only being in the business for like 4 years, or I don't know what the deal is.
Well,
So that the pain that I saw happening, the pain that I was going through, I was like, I have to do this. I've been thinking about this platform for years. From 2017 to 2022, I've been thinking about Strive for 25. How was I going to take it to the next level? How was I going to deliver the education? How was I going to be able to help people? This is something that's been going through my brain for years, but I never got out of my comfort zone. I was busy doing other things, job, work, real estate, whatever. But the pain of what I was going through pushed me out of my comfort zone to do these things. And I'll go back to 2014. And so when I left Fifth Third Bank, I didn't close a loan for 6 months. I had just come on to Pulaski Bank, got brought on as, quote unquote, a top producer. And I was just joking with my buddy, Chris Morrow, about this. Because he was the one who got me connected to our manager, Garrett Knox, who's a good dude, been in the industry a long time. And a couple months, into 2014, he's like, "What are you doing, man? Are you going to close any business this year?" I was like, "Dude, I'm calling people." Like, I was going to networking events. I was, to this day, there are a circle of people that I know that I met in 2014, starting to like figure out how to do networking events and like meetups and all this stuff. Lou Darden, what's up? Ben Zuckerman, what's up? If you hear this. So that was a important stepping stone where like, I didn't know what I was doing. So I learned more about networking, getting out there. And it was something that my business by June of 2014 started to pick back up. People that knew me, that trusted me, they started calling my cell phone. "Hey man, where you at? I sent you an email. I didn't get a reply back. What's going on?" So business started picking up. And that pain and that time frame got me out of my comfort zone again to get myself out there more, because most of my business was done over the phone from 1,000 miles away. And that experience then helped me, kind of frame what I wanted to do with my business. And then things picked up, and 2015 had a good year. 2016 was one of the best years of my career. I think I was I brought on a couple people onto my team in that year. And we were number one in the company. And, that kind of led this push to be able to kind of get outside of my comfort zone and do other things. So I don't know. The reason why I bring it up is because I see in people that I talk to every single day in the mortgage industry, people that are just coasting, that are in their comfort zone, and they could be doing other things, but they just don't have that kick in the ass. Sometimes you need a kick in the ass to go do things, but whether it's a sales coach or it's a manager or whatever it is. And that's something that I know that we had talked about on our podcast together. And this is something that I've shared, on some of the reels and to other people. You said something, "Hey, I had a good job. I had a pension, but if I would have gone down that path, it was going to be risky to do. Risky to have a pension." And that just hits me hard. Like,
yeah.
that was a big choice. And to get to that point of thinking, not everybody gets there. I just think it's very interesting because all this stuff, numbers and properties and real estate, it's all numbers on a paper, right? But it's our job to take those numbers and turn meaning into what they actually do in terms of what we feel and think and how they affect other people. So I just think it's very interesting to really dig into these things and then the why. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm noticing too, is everybody that I've kind of met in this real estate, mortgage or this whole investing, financial freedom path, is everyone kind of has this one moment or something that kind of just flips the switch for them. And for me, like I said, it was being the lockdowns and everything, and just seeing people losing their jobs and being laid off and all the risk behind that. Was there is there like a certain book or any specific thing that kind of just changed your mindset for this whole kind of entrepreneur or financial freedom path type of thing?
Yeah. There's a couple parts to that. I mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad is one thing that gave me kind of that framework of the worker versus, building assets to be able to work for you over time. that's a really important book from just I think a systematic framework of how you think about life and work and things. But like for me personally, probably the most impactful book of kind of taking things to the next level, of pushing myself to get to a different level along the way. And this is coming from an ADHD brain, so it's not even really real estate related at all. But the book is called The Power of Consistency. And this is something that was recommended to me by my sales coach, David Linsmeyer with Southwestern Consulting. And, those of you that have ADHD out there, you probably know where I'm coming from. If you don't, just imagine saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to work on this email or this project, and then not being able to focus on it for whatever reason, just not be able to continue to focus on it over and over and over throughout your day. Like that's the life of somebody with ADHD. And so you have to do things differently than other people to be able to set up your environment, to be able to do a lot of things, to be able to make sure that you can try to focus. And so one of the things that in this book, Power of Consistency,
Weldon Long. Is that the what?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Weldon Long. So this guy, he built a Inc. 200 company in the early 2000s. So he was in the air conditioning and heating and cooling industry, and he built a very, very successful company that was growing very fast, pretty much from out of scratch, from thin air. And his background, if you go backwards in time, and so this is probably 2003, maybe go backwards in time 7 years, and you would have talked to that person and had a conversation with that person, you would have said, there's no freaking way this guy would ever be successful at anything in his life. This is the third stint that he had in jail. He had a kid that he had no relationship with. And his father passed away. And that was kind of a turning point for him mentally, as the book describes. And he got into some of these very powerful thought leaders, Stephen Covey, Tony Robbins, to name a few. And in this journey that he went through, one of the things that he talks about in the book is he realized that, your results are a literal correlation to what you think about. And I'll give you an example, and then I'll explain more. So one of the things that he says in the book is, hey, when so-and-so, that I see at the mall is, with their kids, and they're probably struggling, right? What's their response to struggling financially and not being able to have enough money? They probably go get a second job, or they cut something. They cut some type of expense, and they move on. For him, his response to something like that would be, I'm going to go rob a bank, or I'm going to go do XYZ and commit a crime. So you have the same situation, but two people look at it completely differently. And this is a pretty extreme example, but that's the point in the book, is to kind of give you a polar opposites. But what he goes on to describe is your thoughts literally dictate what you feel and your emotions, which then goes on to affect how you act, and over time affects how affects your results over time. And so, when we go through our entire day, what's interesting about this is, you go 16 hours in your day and you do a million things without probably ever thinking about them. You're on autopilot on so many of these things. And there's other things that we do that we consciously think about, questions. Someone asks you a question, or, hey, a problem comes up, you sit back and I have to problem solve for what this is going to be. So it is what it is. But what he goes on to talk about is that in his morning routine, he calls it his prosperity plan. He has mapped out his goals and his vision of what he wants to be able to accomplish. He maps out a couple action items that are going to help him get him to that destination if he does those things over time. And he reviews that every single day, sometimes even more than once a day. And it's financial, it's business, it's health, relationship. He puts all this into this. And, he spends 15 minutes a day on it. That's it. So how does 15 minutes a day impact 16 hours of your day? So when you think about it like that, it's like, how does that work? How can 15 minutes a day matter? How can 15 minutes a day affect 16 hours of your day? From a ratio standpoint, that's like, I don't know, 84-1 ratio of time of acting versus time of intentional thought. Well, what's going on behind the scenes is you're training something. and you're training something very, very powerful. And on my channel, I call this, hey, tapping into a possible superpower. And this process of driving home from work after a long day, crazy day on the phone, and you're driving home to visit with your family and eat dinner. So you're on the phone, returning phone calls, you're weaving out of traffic. Maybe you have to pick something up at the grocery store, back on the phone, and you're weaving out of traffic without consciously thinking about it. So next thing you know, you arrive home at your destination 20 minutes later, and you've been on the phone consciously thinking about everything else. Well, how does that happen? How do you do all that stuff, operate a 2,000 pound vehicle without consciously thinking about it? And the answer is, you've done that drive before. You've done that probably 100 times. So you've built that drive into your muscle memory. So you don't have to you don't have to consciously think about it. And that's the brain's way, evolutionary wise, to conserve energy. It's evolutionary to be able to build these integral circuits in the brain to be able to train yourself to do things, to make them easy, so you can conserve energy to go focus on bigger problems. And so that power, that's your subconscious brain. That's your subconscious basically mapping out that road, that path, and making it easy for you. So the way he talks about it in the book is, well, what if you can take that same power, that same force that helped you get to your destination of your home without consciously thinking about it? What if you could harness that force to help you reach your goals? And, looking back on that, it's like, holy crap. So I can use this to help me reach my goals. All I got to do is sit here and look at my goals for 15 minutes. Okay, I'm all in, man. I'll do anything at this point. I was in a lot of pain, which is a different story.
All right, I'm gonna check this book out now. It's
That's the pain is the life of any type of commission salesperson. Like the ups and the downs and the grind. But anyway, so
I can see that now. No, I mean, yeah, getting my real estate license, definitely. If someone, if that's their main source of income, I definitely see, like you're saying, the pain of relying on commission. But I gotta check this book out. I mean, I always joke around telling people now, ever since I've been on this path now, financial freedom and all that, is like I'm actually reading books. I mean, I read so much books now in the past few years, compared to, since I've graduated high school. I can't remember how many books I read into the past few years. So it's amazing what books can do for you and just change your mindset. You did mention, and I was gonna finish off on this pretty soon, but you did mention superpowers, or in the book. And as you can see, my son is really big into superheroes and Marvel and DC. And do you have a preference of Marvel or DC characters, or is there a superhero that relates to you as your superpowers in this mortgage industry and this entrepreneurship, or just your life?
Yeah, I have to be honest. So I had never watched a Marvel movie until like probably 2 years ago, and then I binge watched the whole thing kind of in a certain order. So, and that's one thing I'll say is that the people that know me, it's like, this dude's been living under a rock for 20 years. Yeah, our industry it's a lot of hours. It's tough on the family, unfortunately. So the things that you do like that, like I just never got into. But Batman, going backwards in time, was kind of just the person that I related to the most. Didn't have any superpowers, right? But he was that average guy that, something happened to him back in the day, and he just, he wanted to make an impact and save people's lives. And, he built that suit and the Batmobile. Like, come on. Like,
and he's wealthy and he has financial freedom, right?
Right. Yep.
Awesome. Well, yeah. I mean, this has been fun. I'm so glad that, you reached out to me on Instagram, and we scheduled something on your podcast, your channel. And, I say, hey, I'll do it, but you owe me a favor, and I want to be able to interview you. And it's been super fun, chatting with you these past few days and getting to know you. And like I said, we'll talk about this record that you hold in this men's league of baseball, that I think the strikeout king, you said, or something along those lines. But we can pick that up on another interview. But tell everybody where they can reach you again one more time. I know you mentioned, but just remind them where they can reach out to you.
Yeah, and I think on the next time, I think we should definitely dig into more of the social media stuff, because the biggest advice that I would give to somebody out there is focus on doing it every single day. Don't worry about the result. Do it every single day. And building a habit is so important. Like literally, no one's gonna be looking at your posts. If you're not posting right now, no one's gonna look at it. So who cares? Just
Yeah.
do it. And you do it. If you can do it every single day for 6 months, you're gonna learn so much along the way, and results will come. So again, Instagram, strive25 _ Twitter, Joel Farrell Real. Twitter, amazing platform. So many good creators. The thing about Twitter, the best creators out there that have done things quickly, they talk about the same thing over and over and over. Like
Yeah.
literally, like over and over. Just talk about it in a different way. So like consistency, that's just so important when you're trying to be able to build something from scratch. So thanks for having me on, Mark. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for
Blabbing
coming
about
on.
God knows what. So.
No, thanks for coming on. We'll do this again soon. But for everyone else out there, please like, subscribe, hit that notification button so you can know when all the videos come out. But if not, just keep looking for those great deals out there.